Welcome, everyone, to a Sales Hacker live event. Thank you so much for being here. We have got an fantastic panel of speakers from T-Tech. I can't wait for you to meet them. So while some folks are still rolling in, we are going to do some quick housekeeping. First of all, go down to the bottom of your Zoom window, and you should see a little chat box. Make sure that you have your chat setting on panelists and attendees. That way we can all see your message. And then in the chat box, tell us your name, your role, where you're tuning in from. We want to keep this super interactive. So chat with the other attendees. When you have a question for the panelists, you will find that we have a Q&A box. So please ask any questions of the panelists in the Q&A box. That way that they don't get lost in the chat. So today's topic is all about how to make your sales pipeline a powerful lead generator with a sales incubator program. So the leadership team here at T-Tech is going to share how to find the right prospects who have a higher intent to buy, best practices to drive more opportunities with qualified leads, and much, much more. So I'm going to get out of the way soon and let y'all hear from them. But first, I would love to do some introductions. So Holden, let's hear from you. Will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Holden Olson. I'm a Vice President of Global Sales Operations at T-Tech. I've been with T-Tech for the last 19 years, working in our inside sales as a service segment. And, I've had the pleasure of working with our other two panelists for almost that entire time. So, really excited to kind of talk to you about, this case study, and hopefully this information will be helpful for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Barbara, let's go to you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Wingle, and I have been in T-Tech for 12 years, but have been in sales and marketing far longer than I would care to admit. I am the Vice President of Marketing and Sales Analytics, so I spend a lot of time trying to optimize, help, and deliver on sales results.
It's fantastic to have you. Thank you. Eric.
Yeah, so I'm Eric Bisbing. I actually have been with the company longer than these two, believe it or not, 25 years. And so I'm a director of sales operations. What I do is I work with our clients, right, to identify the right tactics, technologies, tips, tricks, all of that, right, to deploy down in order to achieve the goals.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the attendees who are joining live. In case you've just rolled in, don't forget to pull up the Q&A box and ask any questions that you have as we go. And without further ado, Barbara is going to introduce our polls. We've got some fun polls to kick this off. So we're going to go ahead and launch this first one.
So what we really want to do is to make this interactive, is to get the conversation going. So what has been your most effective sales channel for sales outreach efforts? So besides snail mail, what have you been using? Have you been using LinkedIn, text messaging, phone, events for either virtual or in-person? Though I think we're all just starting to come back to in-person, or other. We're only going to have you choose one here so that we can really kind of see what the trend is and what everyone is using for most for their outreach. So if you'll go ahead and vote, then we will share the results.
Awesome. We've got some votes rolling in now. I'll leave it open just for a few moments longer. That way we can collect as many answers. Looks like phone is coming up out on top, but I will wait. All right. We've had the poll open for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and share these results. All right, results are shared. Barbara, do you want to speak to that?
Sure, and it does look like phone is the top choice, followed with either virtual events, LinkedIn, and other all coming in as a tie. Holden, do you want to comment on any of this?
Actually, if you don't mind, I'll take it. Right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think this really reflects what we see as well, right? We know that LinkedIn is a great channel to communicate with people, but it's not a channel, or it's not a channel that you can actually conduct business over, right? So it's a great tool, right? But phones are still what we see as well, right? That is still where business is done. Right. And we know that all of these other things are tactics to get them to the phones. LinkedIn is a very good tool. And we see a lot of success with it as well. But I would echo what we see here with the phones. That's great.
That personal touch.
Very interesting. I love that. All right. It looks like we've got second poll here. I'm going to go ahead and launch this one.
Okay.
And Barbara, I'll turn it over to you.
So, as we talk to clients, we know there's a lot of challenges with sales as we've had this pandemic going for longer than we would like it to be. And people can't be face to face. They're not meeting, they're not traveling, that type of thing. So what has been, besides that, what has been the single biggest sales challenge since it began? Harder to keep those prospects engaged because they just lose interest. I barely get responses to my outreach efforts. People are just not responding. I can't keep up with the volume of inquiries, which would be a problem that would be great for everyone to have. Trouble getting leads and changes to the sales cycle or other, but please respond. And again, pick one so we can kind of see some trends going here.
Awesome. We've had 15 folks vote so far, but some more are rolling in. Any thoughts on which one's going to come out on top? If I should leave it open for a moment longer here.
It would be interesting to see. I do know that a lot of clients we've talked to have had harder to keep prospects engaged. And I think that's probably at least one I would see getting some votes, because I think that it's been a challenge, but I think that there's a lot of great ways to overcome that as well. I don't know which one's going to win, though.
Right. Let me go ahead and launch the results.
Barely get responses to my outreach efforts. I think that that does not surprise me. I think that conversion rates and interest rates and everything, people are looking to how do I make those greater? How do I get more inquiries? How do I turn my marketing leads into sales leads? So Holden or Eric, one of you want to comment on this as well?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has really made it that much harder to really engage with prospects and really kind of break through the noise that we all receive, right? I mean, we're all customers as well. And I think we can all attest, right, to the high volume of emails, phone calls, and LinkedIn requests that we're all receiving. We're going to talk to you a little bit about this today and how to make sure that your team is able to kind of break through the noise and kind of what has worked well for us. And so we're excited to kind of talk to you about that today.
Awesome. I'm very excited to learn what's worked for you and breaking through the noise. Eric, I'll turn this over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So what we'll be talking about, right, is how we helped a sustainability company really with a challenge that they had, right? And that was around achieving their sales goals, but ultimately that starts with setting up meetings, right? And setting up meetings with the sales executives. And there's a lot of challenges. You see them here listed on the page, right? But we'll start at the top. Their biggest challenge was with aligning sales and marketing. And again, we'll get into some detail on this because I think Barb's got some interesting things to share with us. But this was definitely a challenge for them. We have in every organization, it's the classic sales versus marketing, right? We have these two factions. And as a business development team, we're right in the middle. And we've got sales teams that want us to call specific businesses. We've got marketing teams providing us lists to call. And again, helping this particular client navigate that was part of our solution. As part of that, right, they really struggled with how to prioritize the businesses that they want to engage. And in this, with this particular client, we're not talking about warm leads. In fact, there were no warm leads. These are businesses that they wanted us to engage on their behalf because they wanted to do business with them, of course, right? And so they had roughly 10,000 businesses that they wanted us to engage, but didn't necessarily have a method or even a thought about how to prioritize them. And which created some of the challenges, right? We had the sales team identifying some that they wanted to prioritize. We had the marketing team with their ideas as well. And again, like I said, we're stuck in the middle. Then they didn't have a plan on how to identify businesses who had the highest propensity to buy. And I think for those sales leaders on this call, I think we all have been in this situation where the burden then falls to the business development rep, the sales representative, to have a flawless discovery conversation to uncover all of this, right? And it becomes a challenge, right, when you are putting that burden on that team. Additionally, right, we all know, as we saw in the poll question, right, it's challenging to reach people through traditional channels right now. And why is that? Well, I think we all know, right? We're all, for the most part, probably working from home. And whether or not you're turning on your soft phone on your laptop, obviously your hard phones have not transitioned home if you still had some of those, right? And it makes connecting with people, picking up the phone and just having a conversation really challenging. Likewise, with that challenge, we all know, and I think Holden touched on it, right? The volume of communication starts to flow through really email, right? Which becomes an overburdened channel, and even to a lesser extent, LinkedIn. Then likewise, the other challenge that we really saw with this client, and this is kind of the root, right, as to why they actually picked up the phone and called us, was they were wasting time with scheduled meetings that just never materialized, right? Either the prospect no-showed to the meeting, or just kind of it was the wrong person that the meeting was aligned to. And I think we've probably all seen this, but with this particular client, this became a really big challenge because the next step in this process is face-to-face meetings, right? And so you have people flying out to meet with people, only to find that they're the wrong person, right? That they're no-showing to the actual meeting. So there's a lot of wasted time, wasted effort involved here, and that's really where we came in to provide a solution. We want to go to the next one there, and Holden can kind of talk through that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, perfect. So when we met with this client, we recommended, right, one of our sales incubator programs for them. But before we kind of get into the specific solution that we created for them, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on kind of what the incubator program is. So essentially, we wanted to, in all of our years of kind of talking with clients, kind of listening to kind of what their challenges are and trying to find unique solutions that could help them, we needed to come up with something that was really adaptable, right? Was really quick to deploy, had fixed pricing, and something that had the ability to kind of launch quickly. And so we came up with the incubator program that kind of really fits those needs, and we wanted to kind of be able to fit into any part of the sales funnel, because what we saw is that some clients had issues with driving overall awareness, right, with their brand, but had a really great team and had no problems with kind of converting leads once they had them. Some clients had the manpower to kind of work all the way through the long tail of the SMB clients that they were chasing. Other clients needed help with engagement, right, and taking a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead. Some clients needed help to launch a sales team at all, right? So they needed a partner that could deliver a full sales solution. And so our incubator program is designed to really fit into any of these stages along your sales funnel. and allows us to kind of support our clients with doing demand and acquisition, growth and expansion, or retention and loyalty campaigns. And so again, we came out with this product so we would able to really quickly and nimbly kind of stand up a program that would be able to help our clients with their very specific needs. So Sam, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll kind of talk about the solution that we put in place for this client. So as you kind of heard Eric walking through their challenge statements, they really needed help with the discovery stage, right? Identify which businesses had the highest propensity to buy. And this is where we were able to deploy our advanced analytics technology to help them with fit and intent modeling so that they can have a better idea of who to call and why. From there, right, we had to develop a touch cadence, right? What would be the strategy and on how to outreach to these businesses to kind of get them into a meeting that we could set up for the sales team, and then act. We really had to help them, and set up the meetings, right? The whole mechanism of setting the meeting and making sure that the contacts showed up for the meeting. This was a really big pain point for them. They had their, sales team, their outside sales team, flying around and joining meetings with with contacts who didn't have the authority to purchase, or people that wouldn't show up for the meetings, right? So this was a real big pain point for them. So we really had to help them establish a strategy where we could have meetings that would show up and that would be with the right people. And so we're going to kind of go through the next couple slides, kind of walking through the exact strategy that we deployed to achieve these goals in each of these kind of pain points. Eric's going to kind of walk through the details and what we deployed, and then we're going to talk to some of the results that we were able to drive.
Perfect. So when we talk about how we solve this problem for them, like I said, let's first kind of put some numbers to it, right? So this client came to us, like I said, with about 10,000 companies that they wanted to do business with. Again, I'm not going to call these leads because they were not leads. There's nothing hot about them. It's a company, it's a name, right? It's a brand. And what we were able to do is take that list, and we talked about the challenge. Everybody had an idea of who they wanted to engage, and all had valid reasons as to the why. But as Holden said, we deployed our advanced analytics solution to this. And what we were able to do is work with them to identify a subset of businesses that they're currently doing business with that they want more of, right? We use those companies to build a model, right? A statistical model to overlay over top of the universe of leads, businesses that they provided us that they wanted us to engage. Now, what was really interesting and very telling, right, is that once we did that, only a small subset of those 10,000 businesses actually matched the profile of a business that they wanted to do business with. And, obviously, we were then able to prioritize the businesses that showed. We created a scoring model, 1 to 100, overlaid that over top of these businesses, right, and prioritized our efforts against the businesses that showed the highest propensity to purchase, again, via data signals. And this is the key thing. When we talk about how this is traditionally done the old school way, that would be, I hand off this list to business development reps or account executives who then make these phone calls, and they're going to go through all this effort of trying to find contacts, right? Identifying people, doing this outreach that we just described was pretty challenging right now, only to get these people finally on the phone. You're wasting significant amounts of time to then do a discovery to find out that they are not a good fit, right? When now we have data. We have data that can tell us this, and we don't need an agent to go and do that via discovery. So we prioritized the businesses based on that model and then started our outreach efforts. Barb, do you want to talk at all about the modeling in a
Sure.
little bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. So when we go to model for any of our clients, whether it's B2B or B2C, but in this case, I'm going to talk about B2B. When we go to model for any of our clients, we get a segment of their data. So we want to see a positive set of where have they been successful, what type of companies have they worked with where they've had a successful sale, that type of thing. But then in the instance of this company, they had 10,000 that they thought they had targeted as prospects. So we wanted to look at that positive set against those 10,000. But then we're going to go a few steps deeper. We're going to look at traditional firmographic data, which most people, that's what they build their models on, is that firmographic data. What is the size of the company? What are the locations of the company? We're going to take it 2 steps deeper. We're going to look at not only the firmographic data, but web scrape data, data that we can find out about that company. If they have a website or if they're a public company, we're going to be looking at all of their financials that they've put up as a public company. If they're a small to medium business, as long as they have a website, we're going to see, have they introduced a new product? Have they launched a new product? Have they done an additional location? Are they in the mode of hiring? Are they growing? Do they look like they're stagnant, or do they look like they're growing? So we can, in that case, between the firmographic data and the web scrape data, we could model on up to 20,000 different data variables. I'm a data geek, but I'm not going to tell you that that would be best practices at all to use all 20,000 of the attributes. But you want to find those attributes that really drive insight and really give you the ability to say, hey, if company A is doing this, then they are a prime target for our client. The other thing that we are often able to do is to use intent data. So very often, if a company is looking for your product or services, they're doing a web search for that, especially in today's world where people aren't out in front, they're not at trade shows, they're really in front of their computers most of the time. If they're out there doing a web search and they are looking at, for example, if you were looking for financial services or whatever, you would be typing something in. We're able to see that it's company ABC that's doing those types of web searches. It's not that they're coming to our client specific site, it's that they're going to other sites, whether they're industry analysts or vertical market specialists or everything. They're looking at those things. So we're able to also capture that intent. So they're a fit for the product and services because we've identified that through all the data variables and the propensity model that we've built. On top of that, they have the intent to buy something like that. So they're out looking for your product or services. By combining those two things together, the list that we in turn give to Eric and Holden and team is very robust, it's very mature, and it's full of data and information that the BDRs, the inside sales team, can use to further and drive the sales conversation. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Barb. So I'm going to kind of read through a couple key results here. So the first one is once we kind of did all of the analysis, looked at the data that Barb's kind of walked through there, we found that about 38% of those original 10,000 leads really fit the profile for our team to kind of go after. And what that did, it just allowed us to prioritize those accounts, to start with them, start our outreach process, starting with the most likely to purchase scores. So from this prioritization, we were able to instantly kind of kick off and achieve 130% of the monthly meetings generated target. So this really allowed us to kind of get off to a really great start with the client. It allowed them to see that the efforts in prioritization were really paying off, and kind of led to some really highly qualified meetings that the sales team were really happy and engaged to pursue.
All right. Well, we talked about the challenges with COVID, right, and this remote workforce, right, and how it's difficult to reach people through traditional channels right now. And what we did was we sat down and said, okay, well, how do we create a strategy around engaging with really what we would call an omni-channel approach, right? So we're engaging these businesses via LinkedIn, via the phones, of course, right, and email. And I think if we just hyper focus on LinkedIn for a second, we understand that first of all, LinkedIn is a great tool, but it is becoming oversaturated, right? And what does that mean? I think there's probably everybody on this call has experienced some frustration over time where you receive an invite, you accept it, right? An invitation to connect, you accept it, and immediately there is a sales pitch that's followed up with that, right? And we all know how frustrating that can be. And so what we've done is really we've taken a different approach, and it's produced a lot of success, right? And that is, first off, our goal is to become a trusted partner, right? So we are publishing content. Now, we're a business outsource provider, right? So we represent ourselves as the brand or the company that we're supporting. Now, what we're doing, right, is we are posting relevant content on LinkedIn. And that is really, really key, right, is that you have to be active on LinkedIn if you're attempting an approach like this, right? You have to work with the marketing teams, right, to get relevant content and post it out there. And so also you have to build a network, right? That network has to be not just people that you want to do business with, right? You are connecting with industry leaders, thought leaders in that space, whatever it is, that product, that brand that you're representing, right? Who are the thought leaders out there that you can connect with? And these are the people, by the way, that are happy to connect, right? That allows you to build a relevant network so that when you do reach out via LinkedIn, allowing, right, or building a relevant network, posting content is absolutely critical, right? And not going for the sale immediately after somebody connects with you. Again, we all know how frustrating that can be. And so we take a different approach, right? When we receive a connection, first off, in the connection request, we put in a couple sentences as to why we would like to connect, right? When we do receive the connection, we don't immediately reply with a direct message. We wait, we provide some thought leadership, right? Maybe a one-pager to read over about the solution, etc., to an attempt to nurture that customer along until you can get some dialogue going. And then, as we talked about before, right, change or move that customer from a dialogue over LinkedIn to now a phone conversation. Our BDRs actually handle that initial conversation, right? So we're doing a full discovery call once we do that, but we're using it as a tool. So again, it's all of these things combined, right? It's email, it's phones, it's LinkedIn that's allowing us to have success.
So, since deploying this strategy, once launching the program, 100% of the meetings that we've been able to schedule have had this omni-channel outreach. So all of them have a LinkedIn connection. All of them have, email communication, and all of them have led to phone calls. And I think what Eric's, hitting on here is really important. It really takes time and effort really to build out your online persona so that you can look like someone, right, that you want to connect with. You have to be relevant, right? You have to be, connecting with your marketing team to have relevant material to post that supports, right, your talk tracks that you're going to be discussing when you're moving into that sales call with them. You have to be able to be up to speed on all the trends in the industry. And you have to have connections, right, that may be relevant for your ideal customer profile can see that you're connected with someone that they might be connected with as well, right? This is really what gains the trust and allows that person to want to connect with you because they know that there's something that you can give them that they maybe can't get from other people that are just kind of prospecting and gaining connection and immediately moving into that sales pitch. And that nurturing motion that Eric mentioned is really key to kind of keep that new contact engaged and not immediately shut down and stop responding to you. So all right, perfect. Move on to the next idea here.
Yeah. So the other problem, we talked a little bit about this in the beginning again, was the wasted time with meetings. They were either the wrong persona or just, they didn't show to the call. Now, well, we could talk about this in great detail, and I think for all the sales leaders, on the call, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know, right? I mean, the key thing is we don't sell meetings, right? So that becomes the underlying premise here, is that we're not out selling meetings, we're selling a solution, right? And you have to come in with that in mind. And when you do, you really start by targeting the right personas. And you start to deep dive on who it is. It can be fairly easily, if your goal is to schedule meetings, right? It's probably not that hard to get somebody in a company to say yes. The key thing is it's the right person, right? So we're connecting with the right person that has, if it's decision-making power, buying power, whatever that is, right? So, identifying the target personas, engaging them through this omni-channel approach that we've already talked about, is absolutely critical. Having relevant messaging to them as well is really, really critical. So, I think I've seen a lot as of late, right, about whether or not you should customize communication or not customize, right? If you just have a kind of a blanket template, I think what we are advocating here is that the messaging has to be relevant to the right individual, right? And what does that mean? Well, that means that if I'm speaking to a particular feature or benefit of the solution or product that I'm selling or offering, that has to resonate with the title, with the person. All of that has to align. And, as we talked about before, right, not going for the jugular on the initial attempt. I think, like I said, we've all experienced that frustration, which makes us all a little, right, gun shy to accept an invitation on LinkedIn, right? Because you can clearly see sometimes what's coming with it, especially if there's no connections, right? And so, what our goal here, right, is relevant messaging to the right person. And it takes time to curate that, right? It takes time to go build that out, but it does, play out in the long term because, we've had a lot of success with this client, and actually Holden will speak to that here. And there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was something that we talked about was a huge pain point for them coming into our relationship. This was something that we really put an emphasis on when building out the strategy for this client. And like Eric talked about, we deployed a number of different actions to ensure that we had the right person showing up for the meeting at the right time. We like to kind of brag and talk about this result a lot because it's a really big one for the client. So program to date, we have 100% show rate for our meetings. So that means that every single meeting that we're setting in an enterprise BDR sales motion has resulted in the prospect showing up for the meeting, meeting with the sales director, and having that value-based conversation. So this has been a really big win for the client that we support, and something that they constantly say has been such a big value add to their team, giving them back time to make sure that they're have the time and needed, right, to kind of work their embedded base accounts.
Yeah, and before we move off this slide, the other thing that I'll comment on is these aren't meetings that are scheduled for the very next day, right? We don't have a conversation with somebody and schedule a meeting for the next day. Sometimes these meetings are scheduled out months in advance, right? And it's our role, our job to nurture that customer along that timeline up into the meeting to ensure that they show. And what does that entail? That entails more of what we talked about before, delivering content to them, staying relevant, right? Staying in communication with them so that when they are, when it comes time for the meeting, to Holden's point, they show and we maintain this 100% show rate.
That's amazing. We actually have a question here that I think is relevant. If you would be able to speak to the number of meetings booked, somebody asked in our Q&A.
Yeah, Eric, do you have the total for the number of meetings booked? I think we're averaging, roughly, nearly like 28 to 30 a month.
It's right around. I think it's right around 30 a month is what we're averaging now. The one thing that I think we'll call out here is that we're talking about a product with a very long sales cycle. It's about a year and a half, right? And there's multiple touch points here, but yeah, it's about 30 a month that we're scheduling.
That's fantastic. All right.
Well, the classic sales versus marketing, right? We talked about this, and we talked about how we built that model. And Barb here will talk about some best practices here in just a second. But the building that model, right, and putting data, right, data-driven decisions. So actually creating a scoring model 1 to 100 and being able to show this back to all teams, both marketing and sales, takes this from being an anecdotal conversation, right, to a data-driven conversation, meaning that we can show, and Holden talked a little bit about, I think it was 38% of the actual companies that they wanted to engage fit their model, right? Being able to show that with data allowed us to align the two organizations. And so with their sales team, right? Sales teams are sales teams, and sales people want big logos. And I totally get it and I respect it, right? They are out there with a desire to sell to specific companies, right? This was their sales team. And while they're, I can't fault them for that. They weren't data-driven decisions, right? These were targets that were identified via, gut feel or personal desires, right? Likewise, marketing had something very similar. And so by creating this statistical model, we were able to align all of these groups on how we can engage this universe, right? And what statistically, again, which companies give us the highest, propensity to purchase. Barb, do you have any best practices that you'd like to sprinkle in here?
Sure, of course. This is a subject that's probably near and dear to my heart. I've spoken at multiple industry conferences on how do you align sales and marketing. And traditionally, I think we did a poll right now. If you were marketers, you would say, I give sales great leads and they can't close. And if you were a salesperson, you would say, marketing doesn't give me anything, type of thing. But really what it boils down to is ensuring that everyone has a common vision. And what Eric just described was a role that we played in helping our client to understand that common vision and that common goal. And when sales and marketing are aligned and have that common vision and have that common goal, and maybe even carry the same number or the same quota, that type of thing. Let me just give you some industry stats and some industry best practices on this. First of all, when sales and marketing are aligned, your conversion rates are normally 38% higher. 38% can be huge in anyone's world. 67% of companies that have aligned sales and marketing are better at closing those deals. And why is that? Because if you don't have aligned sales and marketing, then 79% of your marketing leads are not going to turn in, they're not going to convert. And that's really because you're missing that nurturing point. You're missing that nurturing where marketing is taking the lead, moving it down the sales cycle, handing it over to sales at the right time, and sales being ready, most importantly, to catch that. It's a football analogy. If I throw the pass and my receivers are not there, they're not going to catch it. So it's making sure that you've got that alignment, you've got that strong alignment between the two. Marketing has a common vision. They're driving towards the same goal, and sales is right there ready to catch what marketing gives them and continues to nurture and help them with client marketing. And overall, what this ends up in is not only those higher conversion rates that I just spoke about, but it's that 36% higher retention rate. Because as you all know, once you get a client, it's more expensive to get a new logo than it is to nurture them and keep them. And so that retention rate becomes extremely important in that end-to-end sales and marketing cycle. So our recommendation to you is just make sure you're partnering with someone who's cognizant of all of that, and that you yourselves, if you're sellers, you're partnering with your marketing team and vice versa. So Eric and Holden.
So I want to kind of walk through some of the results that this partnership really helped us drive. So all of the items that we've kind of talked about today helped lead us to increasing the overall pipeline of the business by 131%. And that increase in pipeline led to an increase of over $1 million in closed revenue. And so this really speaks to kind of how it's so important, right, to make sure that you have complete alignment between the sales and marketing, so that everything you do has the same message. Everything that you do is in complete coordination with each other. And that's what we've really been able to help and partner, right, with our clients on, is to kind of create that synergy between sales and marketing, which has kind of led to these results. So if you want to move to the next slide here. So another really important thing that we see, when working with all the different clients that we get to work with, is that our clients don't always have really full visibility of performance across their entire sales funnel. And this is really important to really be able to diagnose where you can look to improve. Where should your initiatives or investments be going? Do you have the right processes in place to really drive top of funnel activity? Do you see the leads that you're creating converting into quality conversations? And then are your marketing efforts leading to marketing qualified leads that turn into sales qualified leads? And so having kind of full visibility into all of the KPIs across the entire funnel, and then more importantly, really understanding what those numbers mean, so that you're able to kind of make adjustments along the way. So here you saw, as we talked about, that we saw a 38% of the original targeted list. We were able to qualify through our fit and intent modeling to see that 38% of those businesses, were the ones that had the highest intent to buy. This led to us, deploying our omni-channel approach, which was deployed on 100% of the meetings that we're able to set. Of those, which by following that tactic, we were able to increase the total monthly meetings generated by 130%. Of those increased meetings, right, they were with the right people, and they were showing up for the meeting 100% of the time. All of these additional meetings led to a 131% increase in pipeline. And that pipeline, because they were the right businesses that fit the profile for someone who would use the company's services, led to $1 million increase in close one revenue for the client. So here you can see how all of these initiatives all built on each other, taking us to the end result of close run revenue. And so Sam, if you want to move to the next slide. So kind of what we talked about here, if you want to, three main kind of takeaways, or what we would say is led to our success, is, again, we're talking about that alignment between sales and marketing, using data analytics for targeting and prioritization, and making sure that you're interesting and relevant on social channels, making sure that you're making meaningful connections, and building your network across the industry that you're targeting. And so all of those things have really led us to the results that we talked about with you today. And so if this is something, that has been really interesting to you, we'd love to kind of talk to you about any of your business challenges, bringing in our panel of experts to kind of design a solution for you that could help you in any stage of the sales funnel that you are seeing that you're struggling with. Sometimes an extra, a third party view can really kind of help, bring some things to light. So we're definitely going to provide some contact information for you all to reach out if there's anything that we can help you with. But I think now we're going to kind of move into Q&A to kind of wrap up the session.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Holden and Eric and Barbara. This has been fantastic. It looks like we I've got a question here. How often are your BDRs posting content on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so our BDRs are posting once a week, right? That's kind of the standard. I would say a best practice to share with everybody out there is that, you at least want to do it once a month, but once a week, seems as long as the material is relevant. That's one of the things that we really talk a lot about, right? Is that while it is a form of social media, it is LinkedIn, right? It's for business and making sure that that content is relevant. Back to what Barb was describing before about making sure you're posting, or you're working with marketing, getting the right content to post, and not leaving it directly to the BDRs. But that was a good question.
Makes a lot of sense. If anyone has any other questions here, we've got a few moments. Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. What data points do you look at when generating your model?
It really depends upon the client. For this specific client, we really wanted to look at the growth capabilities of the company, and was that company in a growth mode, and was it a fit for? It's really about the data points of, are they fit for the products and services that you are using? If you're a financial services company, you want to make sure that you're growing. If you're a technology company, you want to understand what other technology they have, and we've got the ability to look deep into that and to understand that. So it's really also, you want to see what type of intent or what forward motions they're doing. Are they looking at what's new? Do they put themselves up on their website as being that bleeding edge type of company? Or are they just there to make sure that you have a really good experience as a customer? So the data points are really very client specific.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we've got another one here. When sending emails to your relevant contacts that you are trying to sell something to them, do you attach your presentations or documents, and how many pages of the presentation if you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, attachments can be a real challenge, right? Because we all know that we're coached by our security teams within our companies to not open attachments, right? So you have to be really careful on what it is that's being transmitted or sent. PDFs work much better than like a PowerPoint, right? That isn't necessarily as secure, right? A PDF is locked down a bit, right? So that has some benefits. When you're talking about how many pages, I would think less of the pages. Generally, when you think how many pages, you're thinking how many, how big is the email going to be, right? So if you're thinking about a way to compress it, like I said, PDF generally works best. But I wouldn't think that there's any particular limit. It's all about the content and making sure that that content is relevant to the person, right? And it's not, if I'm talking to somebody, Barb mentioned finance earlier, so we'll go with that, right? If I'm talking to somebody in the finance industry, or sorry, in a finance title, my content needs to be relevant to that person in finance in order for even them to consider opening the email or the attachment.
Sometimes for clients, we also will work with them to build a microsite. that we can send a link to and really get the prospect to come back to a certain place. That way we're able to monitor what they're opening, how long they're spending on the site and everything. So again, very much client dependent, but sometimes, as Eric said, they're trained not to open that attachment, but maybe they can go to the microsite. And making sure that also, one of the things we work very closely with our clients is to make sure that when we're sending this via email or something, that it's coming back with that the email that's going out has that client's name included in it. So if it's for ABC Company and I'm a BDR for ABC Company, when I'm sending an email, my tag will have, it may say sales at ABC Company, it may just say ABC Company, but it doesn't look like it's coming from a third party or from a generic place or a less than reliable source. So making sure that all of those types of things are thought about as you're sending emails and as you're adding attachments or links to sites.
Thank you. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. You actually answered another question that had just come through about those links. I love this rapid fire sort of questions. I think we've got one more to wrap us up, but what type of content do you include in your emails? How many touch points does it take to convert a lead?
Well, I think for us, I'll touch on the touch points one real quick, right? Because I think it all depends on, going back to the client that you're supporting or the product that you're supporting. With this particular client, this is not a singular touch point, right? This is a multi-touch engagement that can go as high as, 10 back and forth engagements, 15. I mean, wouldn't say I'd put a cap on it, right? Because when we talked about how we nurture these businesses as well, it does take time. I would say the other thing there, right now, this is working with a sustainability company. Sustainability initiatives are generally not driven within an organization by one singular individual. There might be a sustainability title, but even that person brings other resources in. And so, it can take time, multiple engagements as we continue to work into the company to find these decision makers and pull them together for a call.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for coming, sharing your wisdom. I'm really excited to pull out some of these nuggets into repurposed clips that we'll be sharing. And somebody asked if we'll be sharing the recording, and the answer is yes. Within 24 hours, everyone here will be getting this so that you can rewatch it or share it with your colleagues. So thank you, everyone who attended live, and thank you so much, Eric, Holden, Barbara. Do you have any final comments, things we might have missed before we go?
No, nothing. Just it was great to meet with everyone today. Great to it was fun to share this information. And again, if this is something that any challenges that you find your organization with, reach out to us. This is what we've been doing now for the last 25 years, is really helping clients drive results through their inside sales channel. And so we'd be more than happy to sit down and kind of do a brainstorm session and kind of figure out how we could partner together and help you in your journey.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, and for sharing your contact information here. Thank you all again, and we'll see you next time for another Sales Hacker Live event. Appreciate you all.